Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the PESTEL analysis. It's basically a tool designed to identify any external forces that might be affecting a business. It stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, or legal factors that might affect a business. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick breakdown of each of the sections and give you all the info that you need to identify and understand the PESTEL analysis. One key point that I want you to understand about the PESTEL analysis is that none of these factors are things that a business can control. For example, a business can't control the weather. They can't control global warming. They can't control the economy when people are spending money. They can't control cultural norms, expectations, technological growth. So basically, a business, what they have to do is identify these factors and see how they affect and will impact the business. The importance of the PESTEL analysis is identifying factors that not only will affect the business, but let's say, for example, you're expanding to a new area or thinking about expanding to a new culture, you have to identify things that will significantly impact the business. Let's say, for example, KFC is moving to Japan. Obviously, they thought about the cultural expectations, social norms, and they had to adapt their menu to fit a more global context and environment, which is why you'll see some items that are available in Japan. But if you applied the same menu in the US, it wouldn't work. So without further ado, let's begin the PESTEL analysis breakdown. The first one is political factors. Now, this relates to government policies and the overall political stability. In general, you want a government that's going to be consistent, you know, not too much turmoil, not too much change, and a healthy environment for businesses to thrive. So, common things that are related to political factors include minimum wage laws, tariffs, and overall government support for the business, whether that's through subsidies or general incentives. Let's talk about what happened in California. So, in California, they instituted a minimum wage for fast food workers about $20 an hour and continually going up due to the rise of the cost of living. So if you think about it as a fast food restaurant, with a lot of locations, a lot of employees, that's going to have a significant impact on the overall profitability and operations of the business. So this is something that businesses have to account for, the political factors. How is this going to impact my business now and in the long run? When Trump applied those tariffs on products that were imported into the US, a lot of businesses that relied on those imports had to increase their prices, and some actually went out of business. So you can see how political factors are going to impact the business, not just on a small scale, but on a very large scale. So, as you can see, political factors are important because they influence business viability for a specific industry. The political system often incentivizes certain activities while disincentivizing others. We see this a lot with like green renewable energy. Some presidents may like this, so they might invest heavily. Some may not, so they'll choose in more like manufacturing and oil specifically and mining. All of this is because taxes are used to fund the governments, so they have to make choices as to where to best allocate their money. So they may incentivize certain industries while limiting specific business activities. So it's important to do your PESTEL analysis to identify which types of activities and industries are being incentivized. The next is economic factors. Economic factors are basically the overall health of the economy. Is inflation going up? Are people spending money? What's going on with the concerns of a recession? Because in a recession, spending goes down, then businesses have to react. If people aren't spending money, they have to cut costs. So that means that they might have to fire some of the staff. So businesses pay attention to the overall health of the economy. And that's something that entrepreneurs are consistently worried about. Let's say, for example, during the COVID-19 crisis, the economy was not doing well, people were at home, but what was hit the most significantly was restaurants, especially dine in restaurants. Many had to pivot to a delivery or a takeout model, and in some instances, many had to shut down. So that's why the economy is very tied to how a business operates. After the COVID-19 crisis was improving, what happened was that inflation was going through the roof. The supply chain was constrained, costs went up, and everything became more expensive. Coffee beans became more expensive, milk goes up, rent goes up, gas prices continually went up. So then you hit a point where the economy is kind of, in stagnating process, and then the inflation was very high. What happened was that a lot of customers switched to cheaper alternatives because they tried to cut down costs. So you can see how the economy is going to influence consumer decisions, which will impact businesses depending on the industry significantly. More and most businesses are likely to thrive in a strong, stable economy, with predictable growth, but some businesses thrive by meeting consumer needs in a weak or unstable economy. Social factors are significant as well. Things like culture, value, consumer behavior are things that will affect the business. For example, let's say you are a coffee chain like Starbucks, and you can see that people are shifting towards healthier options, and they want different types of alternatives, like dairy-free alternatives. If consumers are becoming more health conscious, they might want to reduce their sugar intake, and that's going to impact a business like Starbucks. So now they offer a variety of different alternatives, and they actually reduce the kind of the surcharge on alternatives to dairy, especially to those who are allergic. Basically, this section is related to the overall vibe and kind of the cultural trends of the people. Are people eating healthier? What are they doing nowadays? For example, in terms of delivery, are more people eating in the restaurant? Are they doing more delivery, takeout? These demographic trends are going to impact not only the economy, but businesses as a whole. If more people are working from home, that's going to impact commuter traffic. And then all of a sudden, maybe people don't necessarily need to buy a new car. They're going to spend that money elsewhere. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, this was especially very relevant for businesses in the downtown core because if people are not commuting downtown, they're staying home, which means that that spending is not going to those businesses in downtown. So many had to close down or change their hours, product offerings, or kind of reallocate their store locations. So this is a basically society changing kind of the trends, and this will impact the business as a whole. So social factors are important because business viability is all about meeting customer needs and wants. So in order to be a customer-oriented business, you need to identify needs and wants, which are shaped by consumer demographics, cultural norms, and overall trends. Technological factors are important and they influence business viability because systems for production, distribution, and communication with customers is dependent on available technologies, which is why certain countries might be better for investment from businesses, or whereas other countries might be less viable due to lack of technological infrastructure and even things like internet speed. Yes, internet is part of technology and is essential for establishing business infrastructure, which is why you see, like, for example, South Korea, they're a great place to invest because they have some of the top internet speeds in the world. A lot of people nowadays are ordering through the app. They have a variety of different apps. So technology may include different types of mobile ordering apps, platforms, where you can automate to your business, and how you can use the consumer data that you've collected in the business. So Starbucks was one of the first to pioneer mobile app ordering, especially for coffee chains. But now you see significant competitors that are operating in the Starbucks space, like Cody Coffee and Luckin Coffee, that are moving to the US. And their approach is offering cheaper priced items at a similar quality, but with more convenience. Now, all of a sudden, convenience is more important or as important as the coffee quality. People are concerned about the prices of products. So now businesses have to invest in this technology infrastructure. Technology is not just about creating opportunities and being innovative. It's about adapting to kind of the trends and staying competitive. And if that's what the consumers are moving towards, that's what the restaurants and businesses have to do to stay competitive. Next is environmental factors. Environmental factors focus on things like sustainability and the overall long term health of the earth. And how this will impact the business is that sudden changes in weather or climate can significantly impact the business. Let's say, for example, there's a drought in California and the cost of vegetables and fruit goes up because the supply goes down significantly. There might be also regulations in packaging, pressures to reduce waste, and there's also consumer expectations around sustainability. To me, the most significant one is how climate change can impact costs of products because if the yield goes down, costs will go up, but also volatility. I think I remember studying in my Earth and Ocean Sciences courses at university that just small changes in weather patterns can significantly impact supply chains. Notice that the weather is not changing significantly, but in the long term, businesses will need to think about how this will affect their strategy and supply chain as a whole. Because if they're consistently being affected by things like the weather, let's say a restaurant buys a lot of olive oil and the price of olive oil is very volatile because of the weather and the crop yields, that's going to impact the business. Sometimes consumers may also expect more environmentally friendly alternatives, and these costs will also impact the business. Environmental factors are important because they influence business viability for the reasons of things like climate, access to resources, and even the occurrence of natural disasters. These constrain businesses' abilities to produce and distribute goods and services, especially in volatile climates. And finally, the last L in PESTEL stands for legal factors. These are the rules that businesses have to follow. These could be things like employment laws, health and safety regulations, labeling requirements, and even franchise laws as they are applicable. So, for example, in the US, they're trying to reduce some of the dyes and get rid of additives found in some of the food and packaging. So, new laws may require changes to some of the products. Legal compliance is mainly just about ensuring that your business follows the rules because in the long term, if they don't follow the rules, you're going to experience significant costs and then you have to pay those fines and penalties because the failure to comply is much more expensive. Rules shape how businesses operate and they ensure the health of certain products and product safety. When you apply the PESTEL framework, you identify the factors and assess how each relevant factor impacts the attractiveness and the potential risks of the market, more specifically for a product or business idea. Changes in PESTEL factors may affect the business landscape and job availability within an existing market. For example, in times of recessions, you may see layoffs, which will also affect consumers' propensity to spend. So certain industries are going to be greatly affected. When the pastel factors are good, good political environment, good economy, the social norms are consistent with growth for your business idea, this is going to be good for business growth and it's going to be really aligned with your overall objectives, which makes it a great industry or region to invest in. For instance, a tech business is more likely to locate in a market with relatively inexpensive access to high speed internet, as I mentioned with the South Korean example. And changes in pastel factors, as you can see with the present and in the future, may affect the viability of certain businesses and industries. Their influence on needs, wants, and ability to buy the product will greatly affect the business landscape. And thus, this is why businesses continually need to adjust their product offerings and reassess their business environment on an ongoing basis. Things like production, access to resources, and consumer trends will affect a business landscape, which is why you need to analyze not only internal but external factors in the business environment. Pastel is a reminder that a business should look at things that they may not necessarily control but are important to be aware of. The key word here is awareness. If you are able to identify economic trends, social trends, demographic trends, then you might be able to reduce some of the problems that will occur in the future. And that's the breakdown on the PESTEL analysis and how it's used to identify external factors in a business. So PESTEL are different factors that will affect the business. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching. See you in the next podcast episode.